Greetings and salutations, my friends. Welcome to another Total War Warhammer 2 guide. Today we are looking at the fun end of the Skaven missile units. Today we are looking at the Warpfire thrower, the Death Globe Bombardiers, and the Poison Wind Globadiers. We get there in the end. We'll say stuff right eventually one day. Amazing, some of the best models in the Skaven army. These guys look nuts. This looks so dangerous to do. But, you know, they're Skaven. There's plenty more of them about. And then we've got the standard Poison Wind dudes. Looking very skitterish, ready to go. These are the little sort of hand grenades, poison hand grenades that they throw. And then you've got the upgraded version, the Death Globe, you know, because pink is scarier than green, apparently. Yeah, they look a little bit out of place, I'd say, these guys, out of all, because there's so much brown and green in the army that these sort of stick out like a sore thumb. But very, very nice models. So first off, we're going to look at the Warpfire thrower, and it does so much damage. It is ridiculous, the amount of damage these guys do. The problem is positioning them right. So we'll go through and talk about what they do and all that sort of good stuff. So they got Warpfire, which is after being showered in the unholy flood of odoriferous flames. Those left fleeing in panic are the lucky ones. And then anti-infantry, damage dealer. That sort of sums it up, really. They come in a unit of 32, which is very nice. 3,000 hit points. Pretty standard Skaven. You know, you're not really using them for combat. They've got okay leadership. A bit more armour than a lot of Skaven, but not exactly much. Is where it gets fun, right? Pretty short range, 80. This is the biggest problem with them. Ammunition, 18 shots. They got magical attacks. They do fire damage, meaning it spreads over the whole unit. And the missile damage itself is 112. So you get explosive damage, splash damage, all that good stuff. It also gives a debuff. You know, if you're burning alive, it's probably going to reduce your leadership. I think it's fair enough to say. And they've got the standard Skaven-y stuff that we've seen lots of times before. The problem with these dudes is, like I said, they are very, very short range. And in combat, they're just going to get... In close combat, they're just going to get decimated. So they're quite tricky to use. There's two main ways that you can use them. The first one being is that they stand basically front and centre, just ahead of your main line of clan rats and storm vermin or whatever, and they try to basically get a shot off or two shots off before the enemy clashes, okay? And then they scurry back behind your main lines, maybe then manoeuvre around to the side or whatever and do some other stuff. That's one method, probably the worst method. The method I prefer to use is that I'm going to have, let's assume these guys are all storm vermin-y stuff. I'm going to put these right on the edges of my battle line, maybe just a little bit behind. Let these two big units of clan rats and storm vermin clash into the enemy, and then come round here and just melt shit. Ooh, not like that. Go round to the flanks and then just fire across the enemy line here with your storm vermin doing some damage as well. They will do so much damage, and they will break so quickly. Obviously, it's a lot less damage against armoured stuff, but for your general rank-and-file troops and stuff like this, it's amazing. Obviously, the problem with that is having them off on your flanks is that if they've got cavalry or artillery or some sneaky units that can get round and destroy these guys. So be careful when you commit these guys. The last one is probably the most fun and also the most horrible, and that is have your front line made up of Skaven. You know where I'm going with this. You have your front line made up with Skaven slaves. Let's say you have 6 units of bog standard Skaven slaves as your front line unit. You then have 4 units of Warpfire throwers behind them. And as soon as the Skaven slaves clash into the enemy, you just burn every motherfucker alive. Skaven slave and enemy. It doesn't matter about the Skaven slaves. They can break. Doesn't affect your leadership. You just use them to stop the enemy running about a bit while you burn everybody alive. It's an interesting tactic. Skaven are known for not giving a shit, especially about Skaven slaves. Skaven in general don't give a shit about other Skaven. They're not buddies. Everybody's trying to get one-upmanship on each other. So, a fascinating unit to use. I don't play a massive amount of multiplayer. I can imagine them being quite tricky to use in multiplayer because everybody knows that that's what you kill first because they're very vulnerable. You can't let them do what I was just explaining, so they might get picked on. So, but you guys probably have lots more experience with online than me. I'm talking about more sort of campaign map stuff. Right, so let's talk about the other two units we've got here. We've got the Poison Wind Globadiers. I do love the name. They come in a unit of 48, so a bit larger than the Warpfire throwers. Obviously, they're not teams of two. They've got the Poisoned Wind Globes. Misleadingly, and to the horror of anyone exposed to its content, the globes thrown by Poison Wind Globadiers do not release poison, but a small cloud of lethal warpstone gas. I think that's kind of poison, isn't it? The larger the target surface, the more pain it will experience. Decent, right? Decent. They are also armoured, so unlike the Warpfire throwers, they are also very heavily armoured. More than Stormvermin got 90, I think, so they actually very highly armoured. They also have armour-piercing missiles, and they are good at anti-large. So if you consider the Warpfire throwers are useful for killing your meat and potatoes, these guys can actually go and kill big stuff. They got 3,500 hit points, amazing armour, everything else is pretty bog standard. They got 12 shots, it is magic damage, and missile damage. It's only 85 range, so only a little bit longer than the, what's the Warpfire thrower? 70, wasn't it? No, it's 80. So it is a little bit longer, just less long than I thought. 85 range, and its missile damage has a nice mix. It's got a lot of armour piercing, and a massive bonus versus large. So, obviously, these are very specialist units. You want to be going after the big stuff. You don't really want to be throwing it before you get into combat. Don't be misled by the fact these guys have got armour. It basically gives them survivability, but you don't want to be using them, generally speaking, in close combat. They can do all right compared to other basic Skaven, but that's not what you use them for. This is just so they can maybe survive a charge, survive something while other things come and help it. So these guys are obviously hold them back, work out where the enemy is sending the Bastiladon or the Knights or whoever, and that's what you go after. You wait until they commit and then come in with your Poison Windy dudes and smash faces. So obviously next up we've got the upgraded, the pink version of the, they're called the Death Globe Bombardiers. They've got a tiny bit more hit points. They've got 3 more leadership, but their missiles just do a lot more damage. 22 more damage, but doesn't have the armour piercing. It has a little bit, but basically this is the version for anti-infantry. So you've got different flavours. They've got death globes. I like the description on this. Invented by Clan Skyer, these globes release a magical gas that is more stable than the warpstone gas used in Poison Wind Globes, hanging in the air for longer and thus spreading further. It is especially lethal against large groups of targets. They're, again, 100 armour. Armour piercing, but nowhere near as much. Anti-infantry. Same range, bit more damage, same amount of shots, and all that good stuff. If we look at the breakdown here, and that's not the right fucking button. Armour piercing 12 compared to armour piercing 36. So very, very different, and you don't get that bonus versus large. And again, this I would personally take. These are worth taking on their own because you don't have a massive amount of stuff that's anti-large initially. Other than, some of the artillery and stuff like that, and storm vermin with halberds maybe, but these guys are brilliant at doing the job of taking out the big stuff. These guys do a similar job to these guys. They work very similar. The range is almost the same, and I can't remember the price of them, but I think these are cheaper. I'm probably going to use these. Moreover, I think just the way that they shoot, it's almost like a flamethrower. Right? These are grenades that explode. This is a flamethrower, so shooting across a flank is honestly one round of shooting and you can decimate even a decent unit. So I wouldn't see a massive use for both of these in the same army. I think you might pick your own flavour. You might prefer one over the other. What's the ammunition like? Yeah, see, this has 18 shots as opposed to 12. It's flame damage. I'm going to go Warpfire throwers, I think, but this is very much personal preference. But you just don't need both. You have 1 or 2 units of these, and you have 1 of 2 units of either these or these. Obviously, the 100 armour might make the difference for you, because then when we talked about these being vulnerable on the flank, these were a little bit less vulnerable, because they have a shit ton more armour, but also they do a little bit more damage and all that sort of good stuff in close combat, so they can survive a bit longer if they do get caught out on a flank or something. But like I said, yeah, it's pretty much the same. I just fucking love Warpfire throws. I just think the way they shoot, for me, is so effective on a flank that's what I do all day long. Right, there we go. 3 of my favourite units in the game. Well, sort of, 2 of my favourites in the game, and some pink dudes. That's what we'll go with. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Please check out my future videos and all. I've done basically a mini unit guide for every single race in the game and the original game. So go look at the playlists and you'll see all the each army set out with its own playlists if you want to go and check them out. Let me know which of these 3 units is your favourite in the game, and check out my future videos. We're going to be doing the big stuff next, the Rat Ogres and the Hell Pit Abominations, and then the artillery stuff, which is going to be really good fun. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.